Understanding fuel accumulator failures. Anybody know what these are? This is a fuel accumulator, and what it does is really not very well understood. But what is well understood is that if it fails, you have a massive hot starting problem on your gas engine Mercedes with K-Jetronic or KE-Jetronic fuel injection. And on some cars with LH, but that's kind of uncommon because by the time they went to LH, except with the 500E and 400E and some of those M119 cars, they've done away with this. So this is strictly K-Jet, like a 380 SL, 500 SEL, SEC, etc., or KE, 300E, 190E, 2.6, 560 SL, SEC, SEL, 420 SEL, SEC. So we're going to look at these parts, these accumulators, and we're going to talk about exactly what they do and how they fail. This is an early K-Jet accumulator. It's what's known as a 3-line accumulator. Later on, Mercedes got smart and they eliminated this fitting, so you might have what is known as a 2-line accumulator, and that would have been used up to 1985. Then they went to the compact accumulator, which was basically used on the 190E starting in 84, but all the other KE cars starting in 86. And this small design supplanted this big design. Now there are different versions of this. The 300E has a different version. The 560s have a different version. You know, so it's all a little different. It all varies. Now, when your accumulator fails, you may notice that the car is extremely difficult to start when hot. You will crank that sucker and crank it and crank it and crank it and crank it and crank it. And when the engine finally fires, it'll be rough and and then it'll clear out. And those are fuel vapors leaving the injectors, because there's only one way to get a fuel vapor out, and that's to push it out with clear, cool, liquid fuel. When the accumulator fails, though, it causes this weird thing to happen where all of the fuel that is supposed to be trapped in here under 40 psi drains out back to the zero pressure side on the tank, leaving you with like 5 or 10 psi. If your engine is hot, that low pressure fuel will boil, causing a vapor lock, and the fuel pump will struggle to push fuel through the lines, but a lot of that pressure, instead of getting built up in the storage side, it'll get pushed out to the zero pressure side, the dump side, which is supposed to dump it around 40 psi, maybe a little more on like a KE car, maybe it's like 55 or something, but this side's supposed to trap that pressure and not bleed it out. If the fuel pressure starts bleeding out, then you're going to get that Now, a lot of people misdiagnose this issue and change injectors and throw fuel distributors in other parts of the car. They don't even know what the accumulator is, and they don't even know that it exists. So if you run into this problem, the first thing you should do is the accumulator. Then, if your hot start problems continue on like a 450 SL or a 380 SL or 500 SEL or SEC, change the O-ring on the fuel pressure regulator, which is that 16 millimeter fitting that's located inside the fuel distributor. And if it's on your 560 or 420 or 300E, you may have to change injectors after that. But the accumulator is going to cause the majority, and I would say 75% of absolute hot starting problems. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about which cars do not have accumulators so you don't get confused. If your Mercedes is a carburetor, it doesn't have one. If it has mechanical fuel injection, it doesn't have one. If you have a D-Jet car like a 73 450 SL, it doesn't have one. If you have a, what else? If you have like an E320 cab or sedan from like 1994, 95, it's not going to have one. But early LH cars in the 124 chassis, like an early 300E, 500E, 400E, will have one. So if I'm wrong about that, please let me know, because I don't work on a lot of cars from that era compared to the number of cars I service from the 80s, but you know, I'm just saying. Now, one other thing you should know about accumulators. Brands. Bosch makes accumulators. Now, they used to be made by a company called FB. They were okay, but they didn't last forever. but Bosch makes accumulators. Don't install a Euro parts accumulator. Why is that? Well, we don't know who makes them. We don't know how long they're going to last and if they're ethanol resistant and what else is going to happen. So that's the accumulator to install. And when you're under there, check your fuel hoses and replace them if they're going bad with genuine Mercedes or co-line parts. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you found it useful, please let me know in the comments below. And if you're supporting us on Patreon, thank you. We really appreciate your help, especially because inflation is wiping out my savings at the moment. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys in the future and enjoy working on your classic Mercedes.